Hello everyone and welcome now to game 2 in the series between Kaz and Shortsutff, a player from Slayers. I do believe it is Alicia, as we have Kaz spawning on the bottom left hand side of the map, meanwhile Shortsutff spawning on the top right. So far in game 1 we really saw a late game Zerg, and perhaps the new style of Zerg coming out from Korea. I do expect this to be the major play style from MLG Raleigh, and from what I've seen, Zerg players are going to be very difficult to defeat. That Zerg tier 3 is so difficult to stop. Broodlords with their very effective range, Corruptors and Infestors. You can throw in some Queens in there as well if you want to get in some transfuses, or make sure that there's a very good creep spread. Also very effective going up against siege tanks, since they are high hit point units, or relatively high hit point units that are not armored, absorbing a lot of damage. Now, let's take a look at the spawning locations here. We see Kaz is spawning as the blue Terran player on the bottom left-hand side of the map. Meanwhile, Shortsutff has spawned on the top right-hand side of the map as the red Zerg. So Zerg versus Terran here on Daybreak. And Daybreak is perhaps one of the maps that I think favors Zerg normally. Now, the reason why I say that is early game, you want a lot of distance between you and your opponent as Zerg. You're able to get up to 2 or even 3 bases pretty quickly. Now, once you have those 3 bases, the Zerg tier 3 army is relatively slow. And because of that, you then want the map to feel a little bit smaller so that you can get your forces from one place to another. The center destructible rocks are exactly that here on Daybreak, where the rocks can be taken down, and then it really opens up the map. Things just seem to be able to travel a lot faster, especially with creep tumors down. Walking distances which were normally, say, around a minute, now go down into the 40-second range. And with Zerglings and that metabolic boost, you can flood in Zerglings wherever you need to very quickly. Now, I do believe that Kaz, since he lost game 1, was actually able to select the map for game 2. And it does come as a surprise to me that he would actually choose Daybreak, unless he has a very specific strategy that he's trying to go for. Terran players can easily set up this base here as their third base, placing a planetary fortress down, and what it allows the Terran player to do is it actually expands into the direction of their opponent. If they're able to expand into the direction of their opponent, they can utilize Zelnaga towers, planetary fortresses, and siege tanks with that stupendous range to deal a lot of damage. The problem will really be who is going to be able to come on top here, as we now see orbital commands, barracks, and refineries coming into play. Kaz opening up with a much more traditional build this time around, going for the double refinery, and perhaps we will be seeing some minor reactor Hellion harassment, but the Hellion harassment isn't that effective. Terran players have been having a difficult time trying to find a way to harass a Zerg player, as Reapers, Hellions, and Banshees, the 3 primary effective ways of harassment, are all now countered by Queens, especially with that additional range of 5, outranging a Reaper, and also slightly, or having the same range as a Hellion, but the Hellion does take a little bit of time to stand still before they can open fire. Kaz is already up on 2 bases. Zerglings now deciding to retreat back. Shortsutff still just playing a very heavy drone game. You can see training up 8-9 drones at a time, and with this he should be able to catapult his economy. Now, I like the fact that Shortsutff isn't actually trying to take his third just quite yet. Taking your third base is always a really risky maneuver, and I think what we're going to see is Shortsutff trying to get up his third and fourth queen before he does that. Actually, taking a look at his build, this is a very different build than what we saw in game 1. Nope, we are going to be going into a third queen here, but we are actually going into a faster gas. So Shortsutff opening up with a faster gas style of play. This is not your typical economic build that we saw in game 1. And will it be able to give him enough of an edge or a faster transition into the late game will be the key question. he has a 13 supply advantage. But what will that ultimately translate to, as we now see a Hellion on the move taking a look around the map? Alright, Shortsutff may actually be just trying to go into straight Mutalisk play off of 2 bases. You can see that there is a lot of extractors down, and with his fast tech to tier 2 layer, that wouldn't be too big of a surprise. Now we could also see an infestation pit come in as well. It would just be his option on what he wants to use for his tier 2 tech choice. And what will it be? His layer is now done, and it is gonna be a Spire. So Mutalisk going to be the option or the weapon of choice here on Daybreak. Hellion still dancing back around against those Zerglings. The Zerglings trying to perhaps figure out a way to get a good surround on those Hellions, but the Hellions with a range of 5, splash damage all the way to a range of 6, able to push these Zerglings back home. We now see an 8-minute expansion attempt by Shortsutff, establishing it here at the 9 o'clock position. Those Hellions are not going to really be able to do much, and Shortsutff shouldn't be transferring that much even off into this position. We're going to see another about 40 seconds worth of mining time, so that should translate into about another 300 gas, which should be about 10 Mutalisks right as that Spire is operational. Now, there is a good number of Marines. The bunkers are in position, but we don't see any missile turrets as of yet, even though we have double engineering bays. Hellions are going to look to perhaps torch off this hatchery here in just a second. The Spire should be up in just a moment. Yes, it is. It's going to be another 2 seconds, and we will be getting those 9, perhaps 10 Mutalisks here in just a moment. Creep now being laid down by Shortsutff. A beautiful play, and it's 9 Mutalisks plus level 1 weapons upgrade on those Mutalisks. So Shortsutff really hoping to utilize that level 1 weapons upgrade. There's a spine crawler here. Some drones may get caught in transit. Oh, poor drones. They're going to be able to jump inside. No, one of them is able to morph in and become an extractor. The other Zerglings now trying to take down the rest of these units here as Creep is being laid down. The Queen's getting off some easy shots there, and the Hellion down to 4 hit points, somehow able to survive. Now, I like this play by Shortsutff. He actually started laying down Creep with the Overlords before the hatchery was up, so that right as the hatchery was in position, he had all of this Creep to utilize and work with. Mutalisks, however, now going up against Marines. The Mutalisks are backing off, unable to find a true opening as Kaz sets up some missile turrets. Double engineering bays already down. The front door, some Marines will get taken down, but those Marines able to push back those units again, and I don't believe there's going to be a very strong hit into the overall economy of Kaz's base this time around. There is Creep now being spread off over here, so Kaz is going to be in a little bit of trouble. He's not going to be able to land this orbital for quite some time, as the Creep does need to get destroyed. And now the Mutalisks are looking to come back in, taking down a couple free Marines here, perhaps even a free SCV. Yes, down goes the SCV, and down goes that missile turret as well. So a lot of damage being dealt so far. The Marines are now trying to make their way back over. That one Marine getting off a final shot off there, as the losses are slightly higher by Kaz, but not much higher at all. Alright, Shortsutff still flying around in the air with these Mutalisks. Will he be able to find and cause some harassment? I don't believe so. Kaz is playing very defensively with his 3rd base. Instead of positioning it in the front, positioning it more in the back. Also laying down some missile turrets. He's going to be able to also put down a bunker or 2, which will limit how much damage those Zerglings are able to do. However, he did catch an opening here, but now there is a bunker operational. Another Mutalisk gets taken down. So trading a Mutalisk for a siege tank, not too shabby by Shortsutff. Shortsutff now transitioning into a 4th base at the bottom right hand side of the map. This is much more of a traditional metagame. As I say metagame, I would say around from May to May or even March of 2012 into August. And I still think that Shortsutff should be transitioning into his new metagame, where he goes into a very fast tier 3 with infestation pit, fungal growth, and then just tries to push out with a very heavy composition of corruptors, broodlords, and infestors. Very gas intensive units, but Zerg players are able to expand relatively quickly, and establish gas pretty easily, allowing Zerglings as a perfect mineral dump. Drones now making their way down over here. Shortsutff will be running on 8 gas. That is going to be about 900 gas a minute. And at 900 gas a minute, you can easily reach critical mass on those Mutalisks, or perhaps just transition into your tech already. We can see the tech to tier 3 already underway. Infestation Pit does not have Pathogen Gland, surprisingly, as the Mutalisks are going to simply try to fly in. They're kind of caught in a dead zone here, really nowhere to go, and now finally forced to fly away. 15 Mutalisks with really no place to attack. Very, very sad for Zerg, as he would rather have these Mutalisks be doing something than nothing. Alright, there are Banelings and Zerglings hiding off here. Another command center being established. Supply depots acting as a great wall, as we see another train exchange here. The Marines finding themselves in a great corridor, minimizing the surface area for those Zerglings, and then also with a Thor to shoot down these Mutalisks out of the sky. Shortsutff is in dominant control of the skies right now, and in terms of map control, but Kaz is doing a great job of getting just the right amount of units in order to counter his opponent. You can take a look. The overall resources in terms of army size much higher for Shortsutff, but then again, a lot of those are in those Mutalisks. Very expensive to supply units if you think about it. Alright, Muta's still looking to fly around. You can see some Zerglings getting shot down there. Level 2 weapons upgrade, and level 2 vehicle weapons upgrade, with level 3 infantry upgrades now coming in. The command center should be able to be lifted off in just a moment and perhaps land here as the command center. Oh, destructible rock's gonna fall, but no, Mutalisks are looking to engage and trying to engage while the Thor is away. Siege tank getting in some splash damage as well, as the Mutalisk Shortsutff, I believe, is just simply trying to free up supply and trade efficiently. Meanwhile, we see a Thor siege tank marine push here. Only 3 Marines left, and I can't believe that Kaz would still continue to try to push at this point. Shortsutff looking so strong now, as we saw a split in terms of the army. Mutalisks utilizing their very fast movement speed and the fact that they can fly to get everywhere they need to go. Alright, Mutalisks still on the ground, or in the air here. Zerglings still on the ground. We are running up on 4 bases each. Shortsutff really only mining the gas out of this bottom right hand side of the map. He needs a lot more gas, as we now see Corruptors, and it looks as though we are going into Zerg armor upgrades. Zerglings look to try and take down the Thors, as the Thors were able to almost two-shot those Mutalisks. The Mutalisks do not have armor upgrades, meaning without natural regeneration, those Thors can actually splash damage and take down a whole bunch of Mutalisks, especially if they're grouped together. Zerglings and Queens still Zerglings and Queens still flying around here. We'll see what the next next segment will be, where all of these units will be going. Siege tanks, Thors, Marines still trying to move around, as we are going into a large number of Mutalisks, perhaps trying to flank the top, but double missile turrets going to prevent anything there. Siege tanks of Kaz. Kaz once again with a very nice large army. Is he going to be able to deal any damage is the question, as some fungal growth and some infested Terrans. No, Banelings just hopping on in there. Siege tanks are now trying to move their way up. You can see that there is some Mutalisks and Marines there to try to intercept any reinforcements, as the Thors are just arriving. In comes one Broodlord. The Broodlords are going to be able to deal a lot of damage to these Thors, as the Thors do not have the necessary firepower to really take them down. The hatchery has gone down though, but I don't know if that was a good exchange for Kaz or not. Kaz now down by 50 supply. Broodlord's going to drop off the kids to take down a siege tank very easily, and now all this medevac can do is perhaps rally and head back home. Alright, this base is now down. We can see double planetary fortresses being established here in the center, and Kaz with 3-2 upgrades, Thors, siege tanks, and Vikings unable to go up against the Mutalisks, Corruptors, Infestor combination, and we have still yet to see Queens utilized with this, or perhaps even Ultralisks. Ultralisks are another beefy unit as well, but they do tend to get tied up on themselves once Heart of the Swarm is out, and they're able to do that burrow charge that will be something spectacular to see, as we now see Marines battling up against Mutalisk, and once again the mass number of Marines and now Vikings joining on the fight, gonna make easy work of all of those Mutalisks. Army compositions. Oh, this is actually a bit of a surprise now, as Shortsutff is only ahead by 10 supply, and there is a large discrepancy between the minerals and gas by these two players. This one Overlord has been sitting here enjoying the view for quite some time. Another Mutalisk getting taken down there. And what is Shortsutff going to transition into next? 12 more Corruptors, another Spire for double upgrades, and getting the Zerg Flyer Carapace level 2. That means that the Thors will not be able to two-shot Mutalisk any longer, as the Zerglings are just running in, trying to get in some good exchanges there. You can see one poor Overlord will get shot down in just a moment. Down it goes, as we see Zerglings somehow made their way into this base, salvaging that bunker because there's nothing really in it, and the Marines are now just making their way over. So Kaz perhaps needed a little bit more resources. Can't quite believe that, as we also have a burrowed Zergling underneath this command center. 11 Vikings. We are now seeing a lot more mules being called into play. That should be a nice jump in overall resources here in just a moment. Marines now making their way over, going to need a scanner sweep to take down that last one particular Zergling. There it goes. And are there a lot of idle SCVs is the question. If you take a look at the SCV count, there is 62 SCVs, and where exactly are they? I don't see them on the map. Are they really heavy saturated here? No, and there's not very heavy saturation here, so I don't really see where those 60 some odd SCVs are, as we are now going into Ravens with a Corvid reactor and Seekit missile. The Corvid reactor perhaps should have been done first. Down goes another small group of units there, as the Zerglings now trying to swarm around and take down another. We can see that this base has been established. A rich Vespene Geyser up for Shortsutff. And let's take a look at the unit combination. 2 Ravens and 8 Broodlords, 10 Corruptors. Those Ravens are going to be key in trying to take down those Broodlords, as the Ravens do deal a large amount of splash damage. A small drop coming off over here, and right as I talk about it, the Corruptors and Zerglings are there to clean it up. Let's take a look at the income. 1,800, and somehow, even though Kaz has mules and is only down by 5 harvesters, he is significantly down, or he does not have that much of advantage overall in terms of resources. You would assume with the additional bonus, I'm trying to figure out where those extra SCVs could possibly be hiding, but I don't see them anywhere on the map right now, so not quite sure what's going on there at all. Alright, we do have 5 Ravens in the air now, with 6 more coming in, and this is exactly what Kaz needs to do in order to fight back against this late game Zerg. Trying to utilize energy, trading energy for units, always very efficient, as we see the destructible rocks in the center have been destroyed, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, as Shortsutff may be trying to do a bit of a push here. Siege tanks in position, only to get destroyed. Infestors now coming in as well. You can see some infested Terrans are going to get destroyed, as the Vikings are trying to battle it up against those Broodlords. The Vikings have very good range, but the Broodlings are also now going to be dropping down a lot of units. Some Changelings coming out as well, and what he could do is he could actually try to attack the Changelings. Oh, and a beautiful play here by Shortsutff, because so Kaz cannot activate this Zelnaga Tower because there are 3 Changelings right there, making it very difficult for them to be spotted at all. Alright, Banelings, Zerglings, and a medevac overhead. I believe Kaz will end up getting this one medevac just absolutely destroyed. There are 2 spine crawlers here already, in addition to a spore crawler, and a very large attack coming up the middle. We are going into a fusion core as well, so battle cruisers may be coming out. And now the Queen making its way over. The Queen could get a transfuse off. No transfuse off on the Queen. Now Marines are going to get cleaned up here. Back over here we see Banelings and Zerglings have finished off this planetary fortress in just a matter of seconds. And now it is 4 bases to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases for Zerg. So 4 to 6. There is a good number of units here, as now we are going to see some siege tanks try to blast away at these infested Terrans. Broodlings now dropping in. Infested Terrans going to be making their way in as well, as the Ravens are looking to unload some of those Seeker missiles. Not quite working out. The Ravens are only moving at 2.25 right now. No, actually immobile after a beautiful fungal growth. Corruptors now making their way over, and are we going to see some Seeker missiles? Yes, a Seeker missile now coming in, and down goes one Infestor. Minimal splash damage as we now see a point defense drone in the air intercepting some of those Corruptors' attacks. That is going to be the problem. 125 energy on a very expensive Raven to take down one Infestor. Not that effective at all. We see some auto turrets are down off over here as well. The Broodlings will make short work of them once more. Shortsutff is in dominant control, and so far I don't see actually anything else. Behemoth Reactor now being added. Mass Vikings going to be added as well, perhaps trying to go into some battle cruisers, but the Corruptors will have additional damage against that. 26 damage versus massive, and also the Corruptors have very high armor. High armor effective against things that have low damage but a high attack speed, such as a battle cruiser, and we are seeing more and more Ravens take to the skies. All right, so Kaz coming in, spending all of his gas on Ravens, but is it going to be effective enough? 13 Ravens in the air, going to be 14. Behemoth Reactor about to be completed, and we should be seeing some battle cruisers here in just a moment. Marines now trying to engage here. You can see a lot of damage being dealt as the Infested Terrans are all going to be spawning here in just a moment. That is going to be a problem. Infested Terrans, high DPS, and the Vikings, where are they going to go? They have no real choice but to fight here, as there is a base here for them to defend. Both sides are battling it up, and the Infested Terrans are just taking massive amounts of damage. Point defense drones shutting down a lot of the Corruptors, though, and once the Corruptors get taken down, it is only going to be the Infested Terrans against the Vikings. The Vikings, however, can just simply outweigh all of these Infested Terrans in terms of numbers, but Kaz does say GG, unable to take this game, as Shortsutff now takes a 2-0 lead in this series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.